So we are looking at the triangle, and in a community forum kind of way, when I just do a little briefie about it, and we'll see if we want to ask questions or if we feel we understand it, and I've got examples from our own life. So I think underneath Peter's finger it says action. You take action towards a goal. And AE and RE is accepted efforts and rejected efforts. What we experience on the way to that goal, is it one that we're finding it easy to take, or are we hitting roadblocks and obstacles, or not getting started at all? And whether or not, I guess, as rejected actions are there and rejected efforts are there, whether when we are aiming towards the goal, then we have to stop and it says development of the goal. I can't see the little tiny squiggle. And we evaluate. We evaluate in terms of whether we reach the goal, whether we need to reset the goal, how successful the goal is, or how far it's taken us. And when we've evaluated, we make a new decision, decide on the next action, and go around the triangle again. And I don't think Peter's spoken about this much, but as you can see, he's put the word change in the middle. And I can't really speak to that because I don't remember why he said. Do you know, Nicky, why change is in the middle of the triangle? Just that it's part of the way we change, like aiming for and assessing goals.
I guess because that's the whole point of the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You just keep going around the triangle enough, you achieve change. I think that's what it means. I'm not sure.
So I'll just see if I can come up with an example to do with the book, because of that being my distraction, going to pick up the hardback copy. Do people want me to leave the diagram up for a bit, even though it's a little bit fuzzy, or shall I go back to seeing faces?
I think we can go back to seeing faces, at least on my end. I don't need to see it anymore. I gave it a picture.
I'd rather see faces myself.
Okay, me too. So that's nice and simple. And Nicky doesn't count because she can't see faces anyway. Only in that respect, of course, Nicky, although isn't relevant. Are you okay with going back to seeing faces tomorrow? Yes. Okay, so my example, why don't we see if we can think of an example, and if we can't, that'll be a good place to ask questions. So my example to do with wanting to write a book about my husband was I achieved all sorts of things except for my own writing. And, you know, I had chapters submitted from all over the world, and not all over the world, but from the UK, and one from Sweden. And there was only one other person and me that hadn't written our work for the book. And I thought, well, I've really got to stop just hoping it's going to happen. You know, I had a goal that I wasn't doing anything towards the goal, because I had these bits and pieces I'd written and kept over the years, not over the months, but over the years. And so I thought, how can I get started? So I decided that in August of last year, I was going to do something towards actual writing of the book every day. And I was not really familiar with the term triangle then, because it's recently developed by Peter, but I was thinking in terms of small goals to help have an accepted effort. So I was very clear that the something did not have to be writing. The something one day might be looking over all the bits that I had written in the previous 4 and a bit years, and seeing if there was anything I wanted to use from it, but kind of without pressure. I'm trying to remember some of the other things I did. I think I did things like looking for quotations or something. I can't remember exactly what I did now, but I had things in mind to do if I wasn't able to write. And when I began actually writing, it was quite a struggle. And I don't remember the precise details of what I did, but I know I did things so it didn't become, it was hard work, but it didn't become a rejected effort, because I wasn't setting goals like, I have to finish my chapter by a certain date, I have to write so many words a day. I didn't do anything that that would, for me, I can't do a write so many words a day thing. That's something that works for some people. It doesn't for me. I had to push through the lack of inspiration, and then when it came, eventually at some point in the month of August, I really wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote, which is more what I'm used to. But I know I was using the idea of small goals and not beating myself up if I didn't write for 10 or more days. I can't remember how long it took me to warm up. I don't know that I would have started. I think I might have held the whole project up for even longer, because as Nicky pointed out, I was probably grieving, and that was probably why it was hard to kind of put words to paper. And if I just kept thinking, well, the only obvious thing is I've got to write the whole chapter. If that had been my goal, write the whole chapter. I mean, I wrote 3 in the end, which I didn't know that I could do in the time by the deadline. And I wouldn't have been able to start, I don't think. So that's my example. I hope that wasn't too long-winded. Is there anybody ready with an example that they'd like to, something from their life? It can be obviously a much smaller thing than the book project. Yes, Elizabeth, please.
Well, I'm hoping to have some help working through the process, because I have something that fits the triangle, but I'm still very much learning where the pieces all go. So the big goal is to publish an adventure for a role-playing game that other people can take and just play it without having to think it all up themselves. The medium goal was to use the month of December to write 10,000 words of this adventure. Describing the places and the people, etc. And the way I've broken that up has been interesting, because the initial goal was a word count per day. 323, that's what it divides if you write every day. And it's a small, doable goal, but there were days when I just couldn't do it. And I don't know why this time was different, but in the past, what has happened to me is I couldn't meet a goal in the step along the way towards a bigger goal, and I would shut down and abandon the process. And this time, I didn't even push myself to meet the goals each day, and I felt really good about myself, and I didn't abandon the process. And I'm wondering what exactly changed there. And I think it has to be somewhere on the triangle, but I'm not sure where. So that's all.
I have some thoughts, but do you have something you want to come in with, Nikki? That's a question.
No, I missed a word or two at the beginning. It sounds like some sort of game or something.
Yeah, writing an adventure game for role playing.
Okay, so I didn't get the whole. Okay, no, I'll just listen now. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So what I thought, Elizabeth, was two things kind of sprung to my mind. One was that this time around, you knew the idea of accepted and rejected actions. So this time around, your thinking brain was alerted to, I might fall into a rejected action, just knowing about it. You didn't have to think consciously about it. The rejected action didn't appear as if by magic, but I'm going to suggest what the magic was with my second point. The second thing I thought of was that in the meantime, you developed a subsidiary purpose. What I mean by that is, it became part of your purpose in life to learn about self-care. And I'm guessing, you didn't say so, I'm guessing that when you couldn't meet the goal, it was, days that family demands and or pain, that you weren't well enough to do the goal.
Yes, that's true.
So because you developed a purpose, which was, this is my guess, I know I talk with a lot of certainty, but this is my guess using the tools, that you developed a purpose of, it's important for me to look after myself, and not kind of, I mean, maybe that's part of when you fell into abandoning the projects other time. I don't know, because you didn't put that in what you said. But, if that, being not looking after your pain earlier could have contributed. So this time you had you had two purposes, and you had, if you like, a common sense attitude to, if it's too much for me to do today, I'm not going to do it. But I have a feeling of accomplishment because I've achieved the goal of self-care. And that would be my guess about not falling into negativity, about missing it. What do you think about that?
Yes, I think so. I think when I was assessing whether I should attempt writing on a given day, I was really looking at whether I was making a rejected effort to attempt it. And I was really evaluating, terms of hurt and purpose in a way I haven't before. And I think that made a big difference. And I'm 2,500 words away from my goal, but I always write more towards the end of something than towards the beginning, and I'm feeling really good about my odds of finishing.
Yeah, because 10,000 words is quite a lot, isn't it? It's
when more when it isn't narrative.
Right. What do you mean? Do you want to tell us a bit about what that means?
Well, the stage I'm at is writing world building, which is brief summaries of what is where and who is there and what the purpose of it is. And it's not the same as telling a story in narrative where one thing flows to the other and there's a lot of stuff that's filled in besides that summary because you have to speak at length and you have to make it sound good. So, for National Novel Writing Month, the goal is 50,000 words, which is even more writing. But it's narrative and this is summary, and that's why the word count goal is only 10,000.
So what was that? Can you say what it was like with that extra challenge of trying to write summary in relation to making an effort towards the goal? How much did it complicate things that you couldn't get in the kind of swing I was describing?
Well, the density of ideas is greater, I think. I'm trying to formulate and explain. I'm actually at a point now where it's getting a little harder because I've explained a lot of the stuff that's in my head is, you know, the part where the things that were in my head are now on a computer are done. And now there have to be more ideas in my head. And it's challenging. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
The difference?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, I'm really proud of you. That was a big goal. It's wonderful to have had that change from other times you've attempted something somewhat similar. I'm going to ask Elizabeth to give us some more examples in a minute that we were talking about in our Pellin study and support group, but let me make room and see if anybody else has come up with an example in their life of pursuing a goal and how that went in terms of taking small steps.
I think I'm having some issue. Well, there was, if we're going to the example, the YouTube channel, which I started, and I did do several videos. I mean, some of the purpose was to start building what I'm developing with Essentials Astrology. Some of it was to kind of open up my performance life force and get over stage fright and stuff. And I did it for a while, and I was doing it every week. Eventually, though, just recently, I decided to stop trying to put them out every week. I mean, I'm not getting too many views. I did get a lot of views on one of them, but in terms of evaluating of hurt and purpose and how much time it takes to do them. But I think they're helping my blogs, though, so I'm not sure how much purpose there is. But I think I'm running, so I guess I can feel feelings of accomplishment for having done it that month, and I mean, having done it for several months, and also, at least for now, making a temporary decision to stop, or at least stop trying to pressure myself to do it every week. But I think I'm getting hung up right now on a decision because I've got all these little triangles that are sitting out there, and I'm not real sure which one or ones are, so I'm a little, I think that's partially where I'm overwhelmed with what I have to do and what I want to do, and I think I'm okay. I think I knew, like when I was doing the YouTube, what I broke it down into goals, and I didn't try to do everything every day. I did, writing the script was one, or making my outline was one. Memorizing it, making the images for it, and doing a thumbnail was another. Recording it, and I didn't even try to record and edit on the same day, because part of my issue with having to do it after getting all super nervous and then having to actually look at what I was doing on the same day was just too much. So I waited till the next day at least to edit it and then publish. So I had divided it into separate tasks, and I was sort of doing it all week. But it took a lot of time, and a lot of my other goals fell to the wayside. So So that's kind of where I'm at now, in terms of, so it probably might be a good idea at this point to start using, to ask for some advice in terms of trying to figure out where I'm going and what I'm doing. So, but I think that's where I'm at now.
Well,
That's about it.
can I just ask you a question before,
Mhm.
before you explain a bit more what the little triangles are? Because
Mhm.
it would be easier to give you advice knowing some at least of what you're juggling with your different goals. But what I wanted to ask you is a hypothetical thing, so you may not know the answer,
Mhm.
but that's very interesting how you clearly broke down the big goal into discrete different goals and apportioned different days to them. I'm wondering, well, the answer might be I never could have done it, but I'm wondering, just hypothetically suppose that you were aiming for the goal of making a video a week, but you didn't know this tool or you didn't know about accepted and rejected efforts. Can you imagine how you might have approached it differently and what might have happened without knowing this? Can you imagine the contrast?
I probably wouldn't have happened at all. And it also wouldn't have happened had I not known that part, and I probably would have rejected, particularly when I had videos that didn't get, that, I mean, that got under 20 views or under 30 views, which is very teeny. I mean, even my highest one it's got like 448 views, but for YouTube, that's nothing. But if I had that as my goal, then yeah, I would have given up on it long ago. But knowing that part of my goal was just getting over stage fright, was bringing out my performance life force and getting out over stage fright, and letting that be part of the goal and where I got feelings of accomplishment from, I think kept it going. Yeah, I don't think I would have given up after the first two if I even got one out at all. I mean, that's I would, and particularly focusing on what my goal was, I think. I mean, because I've gotten through accepted and rejected efforts for all sorts, but see, I've been practicing with that for a long time since I didn't learn about the whole triangle, but the whole accepted and rejected efforts from you, Mary, like years ago when I had to do it to get through my bankruptcy. I think that so I've been practicing that for years. So not with the full triangle, but just that thing. So I think, yeah, I actually, I wouldn't have done even, I wouldn't even have done maybe a quarter of what I have done over the past few years, even though I'm still scattered. But I mean, I wouldn't have gotten through the bankruptcy. I wouldn't have gotten through getting my practice going, and all this other stuff had accepted and rejected efforts. That particular concept, and in particular, the one that's been the most helpful is the sort of it hasn't been termed that, but I have it in my head, the "oh come on." Like you got to make the task so small that that's how you explained it to me, that in your head you say, "oh come on, you could do that," like opening up the Word document, putting a title page. In fact, I even did that last night because I have an article I've got to do for one of my clients, a freelance who pays me to write articles. Last night I had a lot to do. I figured, well, I got to get started. So I just opened it up. I started a new article. I put the title in and I put what the keyword should be in there, and I closed it, but at least it started. And sometimes it gets me more, sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, I like accepted and rejected efforts. And that's not where I'm hung up on. I'm hung up on the evaluation part.
Yeah, no, I realized that, but I thought that was helpful from a sharing the tool point of view, and that was really helpful, I think. It's really evocative about like if I did a similar thing about the pendulum, it would show how useful knowing the pendulum can be. That was very helpful for showing just a rough sketch of you know, just by saying the word bankruptcy, you know, who's going to go, oh, good, I really want to do all the things I need to do for bankruptcy? Nobody is. So, like, even without giving more detail, that's a really good example of how using your mind and knowing this tool and breaking things down into small goals really helps. I'm aware that at the moment, because we're all more familiar with accepted and rejected efforts than we are with the process of evaluation and decision making, that we're talking more about accepted and rejected efforts than the triangle. And I think that's okay for the moment. We've got long enough to move on to that, especially with, you know, with you wanting us to evaluate with you about something. I think I was going to make another point, but I've forgotten. Nicky, do you want to come in with anything at this stage? I don't necessarily mean an example for yourself, but any
Hi.
comments?
No, it's just giving me inspiration about things I would want to say about myself. So
Right.
I can link it together when I come to that. Thank you.
Sure. So, so why don't we see if, you know, if Tamara and Nicky want to give an example to start us off, and then we could maybe come back to you, Cynthia. We could use you as a case study for us all learning how to apply the triangle. Tamara, do you want to go come in with anything?
Sure. I have a couple of questions hanging in the air about triangles. I literally just heard the word triangles, and I've just been making it up what that means since then. And I literally just see triangles, and then I see triangles inside a larger triangle. So I've been excited because my idea of triangles is taking a big thing and breaking it down into smaller and smaller doable pieces, so you don't choke on the big on the big thing. That's too much. And the other question I have, and that's right, am I right in getting that it's that you can laugh? It's like, no, I can, yes, of course I can do that. I can like, you know, come up with a title and the headline of the you know, like the Word document, you know. So I wonder about evaluation, and I'm still wondering about, I've heard about the role of advisors and how important that is. And I wonder if there's a place for the role of advisors in the triangle. So let's see. Well, I did my first piece of triangle work with in our thread, and oh God, I'm getting anxious just thinking about the big triangle. Oh. So this is me trying to get, oh my God, a client portal, HIPAA compliant client portal, and this whole platform set up for therapists to see clients, not in the way I'm doing it, which is almost literally paper, cut and paste, email. It's not sustainable. And I tried and failed, and then it was just left there, sitting there as something that I tried, and it was a rejected effort.
Can you just say the name of the program? So
it's called Simple Practice, and
it's an online thing that once you've set it up, I believe it does a lot of the stuff for you. Just explaining for Nicky in particular, because she wasn't in that little group where we discussed this. And it's very much in the official strand.
Yes.
Because it's, you know, doing everything absolutely properly, but the idea is to help you with the software, but
yes, and I don't know. I mean, for me, I think probably any triangle I run into, I think of like, you know, when you ring the triangle for everybody to come in for dinner or something, but that's what it sounds like in my head. It's like, oh my God, I walk into this huge, you know, and it's like, and then I'm just seeing stars. And it's like, what was that? It's like, oh, that was a little bit of, you know, real life. And it's like, oh, it's too much for me. I'm going back into my hole. So the thing for me was to pick it up again, which is hard. What I notice is that when you leave a big triangle, but it's just sitting there, I think it builds power and force so that when I start to approach it, it literally, my body, it feels like it's like I'm stepping in close to a pile of snakes that can bite me or something. So it really takes on a life of its own when it is not touched on or broken down into smaller pieces. It seems to run itself, and then I don't feel that it's like I invited this thing into my life, but it doesn't feel like it's my doing anymore. It feels like whatever this project is, it's going to do me. It's going to do me in. So
Tamara, can I just come in a moment because
yeah,
my friend Christina has just joined us, even though I didn't have time to text her.
yes.
I don't know if she's, yeah, there she goes with her
Christina.
video. She's in my house, my tenant in my house. That's my house you see behind her. Hi, Christina. Is it okay with you tomorrow if I just summarize what's happening?
Yes.
Okay. So, Christina, I told you we were going to be talking about the triangle, and that's a way of looking at conceiving goals and taking action towards them, and evaluating the size of the goal, whether you've made a goal that's too big so you're not getting there. Just so it's about evaluation and decision making and how we get to reach our goals. And a summary, when you hear people talk about triangles, is just an idea of, you can have like a big goal, which we're kind of saying is like a big triangle, and how do you get to the goal? You need like small steps. And the triangle part is all to do with the evaluation and decision making, action, evaluation and decision, which we're all learning about because it's a development of the Pellin tools. So we're beginning around how we face tasks, and Tamara was just giving an example. Does that kind of make some sense?
Yes, thank you.
Did in the Pellin coaching, did we talk about accepted and rejected efforts? Do you know that part of the material? Yes. Yeah, okay, so that's the bottom line starts with action, moving towards a goal, and accepted and rejected efforts comes in on the bottom of the triangle. So Tamara, back to you and your example.
Well, I think that the first thing is coming out of the closet and letting somebody on the outside know, and just naming the thing that feels, that's kind of now being held with shame, and just naming it. And so doing that, once I was able to do it again, and I contacted, I wound up contacting 3 different, sources of humanity, and just saying, oh, this thing scares me. And I got offers of help coming back to me. And that was pretty profound. So I didn't feel alone in the thing, the big triangle. And so I felt that I could, I don't know how I got it's okay. It was okay for somebody to help me. And so a family friend and I sat on shared Zoom for a couple of hours. We're going to do some time again today. And I don't know why anybody would want to put in that time for me. I don't know what's in it for her, you know, that way of thinking. But it's so anyway, for this triangle, I am chipping away with another person, and there's something about not feeling alone and asking for help that was an important part of getting to the goal, and not rejecting the process outright. I think it has really helped me. The only way I can manage this is to just do, I think Cynthia was saying small. Was it small? Like the idea of small steps. Very, very in trying to stay in the moment and not future trip. You know, my mind is unbelievably, it's just ridiculous. It's just always in a flap. I mean, if I go to my thoughts, it's just not helpful. It's like, well, we didn't get anywhere. It's not going to work. It's going to be years before it's too expensive. You're not going to use half of what but it's constant. It's just constant. There isn't one useful thing there. So it's just a discipline. If I use any discipline with the triangle, it's also to remember to not listen, to try to really just not listen to the yada yada, because it's the superego and it's never helpful. So part of keeping it small is me staying small and kind of ducking and not letting the big ideas about everything pull me out of being grounded in just doing the action, you know. So that's my triangle, is simple practice platform. And I'd add one more thing. It's another question, which is that what I've noticed is that I actually took on a lot more of touching on things that I've been avoiding and really making big first steps, and noticing that instead of having a feeling of accomplishment with an accomplishment, clearly, I mean, you know, that I actually felt less satisfied and more annoyed and irritated with myself. And I think it might be that not friendly voice again that just is going to tell me that whatever it is not good enough. And it may be why I avoid trying to do things, because it makes the critic voice louder in my head when I attempt. And so I think I've learned to just not try and hope that it keeps the negative voices quiet.
It's kind of perfect timing, because, you know, starting Monday, you know, you have an opportunity to explore that with the chair work, which is so good for hearing. I mean, Peter may take the work in a different way of not, you know, who knows what he'd do with that, but in terms of presenting something you might want to work on, it's such a clear thing, because that's a bit of a soul killer, to sort of be able to use the tools to get yourself to do things where you couldn't before, But you know, if you do that, you're going to draw the enemy fire from within. That's pretty tough. And I think you deserve a lot of credit for what you've done with simple practice and what you've done with those other things, because that's not fun when our own selves are not helping us, you know. So I think it's another very powerful example of how, you know, Pete, you will have heard Peter say maybe that the mind is undervalued in therapeutic methods. That's not his exact words, but that's a real driving force behind contribution training tools, is, you know, the power of the mind to affect our emotional and productive lives, and that's not really given a place normally. And that's certainly true for me with, you know, finding I could apply the pendulum when I was certifiable. You know, I did use the power of my mind to persevere against the complete utter madness I was in. So you know, I think that's something that we have, and 12-step programs have too, the power of the mind. So anyway, thank you so much, and I just wanted to kind of give you that sense of perfect awareness for moving into virtual Pellin Italy next week.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's being delivered just in time. Insight.
But so rich that you've made all this progress against these difficult conditions, and now, you know, you're aware of, you know, you could just, it's a good timing for receiving. How can we do something about this, managing to accomplish something and not getting the feelings of accomplishment? That's a very powerful thing to work on, I think. Don't mean to be dictating a word for you, but I just popped in so strongly.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
So Nicky, do you want to come in with something after your thinking time?
Hi, yeah. Thanks. It's really useful to me hearing everybody else's different angles, you know, that everyone, I'm so used to only seeing what my struggle is. So it's just inspiring seeing other people have opposite, different struggles. Because in my inner world, it just seems so simple and obvious that the problem is the problem that I've got, you know, where it's like, oh, anyway, I can't express that any differently. So you know, my thing is about the old accepted and rejected efforts. So I've sort of never even bothered to contemplate whether I'm good at goal setting or not, or evaluating whether I've set goals or not. It's like either that's sort of genuinely not a problem, or it's so not a problem compared to the problem of rejected efforts, which stops me taking action, that it never even features, because I always think of it as, you know, I have a great problem with action in the material world, and but actually it's really clear that it's about accepted and rejected efforts, and so which in turn is about memory links, which is about intensive, thorough early conditioning that went on and on. So even though I've been intensively working on preventing creating rejected effort, just in my life for years and years now, as much as I possibly can, and it can't be avoided because some things you have to do that you just have a rejected effort about. But if there's one that I've got a choice about, just forever it seems, I have not done it, which is why my life is so limited in variety and so on, I feel. But it's all about, once I learned about rejected efforts and I saw what a huge, huge, huge problem it was for me. And I always believed that a couple of years of looking after that would be the magic thing, but it's not. But it is making a difference now. And so my example this year, I've said here before about how, I had to do this, sorting this flat out to get it re-rented out. And it involved looking at every angle, including was I going to sell it or not? And then an intensive thing that I'd never looked at before, was I going to go to an agency or not? And that was really complicated for me, about trust. Trusting, putting it in somebody else's hands that then you don't know if they're making a bodge of it. Whereas if I do it myself, I do know where I am making a bodge of it. So what am I saying? Yeah, so therefore this year I simply had to, and I decided to do the opposite of what I've done all these years, and just put aside therapeutic processing of my rejected efforts, and just push on in spite of them, which did achieve eventually each objective, each particular step, every small step. I'm good at small steps, I'm good at splitting things up into small steps, because I've had to become good at that, because bigger steps are impossible. And so I did that, and tinier steps, and still had to do it 6 times, and just push on, and result was I got more and more frenzied. But the material world objectives did progressively get achieved, but I was just in a internal frenzy by the end of it. Just the stress of pushing myself against my rejected efforts and doing them anyway, doing the things anyway, ongoingly, and never. I just knew that if I dared to take a break from doing that and tried to defrazzle myself, then I might just stop altogether, and months would pass and I wouldn't be able to make myself take action anymore. So, and I still say I'm not back to normal yet from that. But there's something, I don't quite know why, but something to do with hearing everybody else share about their stories of it has really helped me to focus on as usual, the magnitude of the early conditioning to create rejected efforts out of life, everything in life. Like, crikey, no wonder that is such a bugbear. Whereas, of course, on a day-to-day sort of level, I can get into, I get in a struggle to not to return to keeping on being not creating rejected efforts by not trying to make myself do things. So the new case in point is now I have to declutter my home where I live, and kind of redesign it. It's a whole project now I think of it. I've got a whole idea in mind. I want to reconfigure everything. So it's a big project, but as well, I live in it. And then that means I'm in it all the time. I'm here. And so all my internal stuff is here, manifested in the place where I live, where it's not manifested in a flat that I rent out. So, yeah. it's a much bigger project. That's what I'm just seeing now. It's a much bigger project because it's not only it's the material world, and it's the rejected efforts issue, and therefore it's the early conditioning issue, and my processing issue, and of course we're in enough of a lockdown here. There's no cafes open, so I can't go anywhere else and journal, and that's a big handicap to me processing stuff and getting expansive, because that's how I become expansive, and it's all part of the problem as well. Sort of, I've got a project on at the minute of trying to find little slivers of the world where I can journal now that the weather's cold. And for example, London's in tier 4, and there I had some hope today that we might be in lockdown again, because if it was going to be lockdown, then the golf course is going to shut, and that meant the driving range will be open for me to go and sit in their little driving range box where I get shelter from the rain, and I could sit on the bench and journal. But it's not. We're still tier 4, so the golf course is open, so I'm not allowed to go there. But cafes aren't open yet. Like, we're in exactly the precise wrong nature of lockdown, wrong percent of lockdown for me to be able to do the thing I need to do that helps me to be expansive and then address all of these things. Okay, I think I've come to a stop. I need to just call back in a minute, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I'll look out for you.
Okay.
So, I'm aware that I think one way we could, I don't know what you think, Nikki. I'm just going to make a suggestion, and Cynthia, you'd be relevant. But I think Cynthia raised the issue that she had like a number of goals or a number of triangles, and she didn't quite know what to do. And I'd like to see if we can focus on something where we're trying to apply the actual tool. And if people wanted, I can put the diagram back up. What do you think, Nikki? Have you got a sense of what might be useful for trying to explore triangles?
Yeah, good idea. Cynthia's up for that.
Yes. Are you up for that, Cynthia?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, I might need to like get advice like for in terms of like business and how to go about things.
Sure,
but yeah,
sure.
because sorting through the different areas, it might be helpful if nobody else says. I mean, I don't want to take up time if somebody else needs it. So.
No, I think that's.
I actually had.
Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I actually had a thought about Cynthia's situation. I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Sorry.
it's fine. Go ahead. If that's okay with Cynthia. Sorry. Are you okay for whatever Elizabeth's thinking,
Yes,
Cynthia?
yes, that would be good. I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Right. Forgive the camera being off. I'm actually in my bed. So, when Peter first introduced the triangle, we talked a lot about the importance of the small triangles, but he warned us not to forget the importance of the big triangle, the big expansive goals, the impossible dreams that, help humans exceed themselves. And as you were talking about, wondering which of these little triangles to pursue, the thought came to my mind, what's the big dream? Because which ones you pursue depend on what the big purpose is. That's all.
That makes sense, and I'm as I was thinking, and I was trying to think of how to say things. in terms of, because if I just told all my little goals and tried to prioritize, we'd be here for hours. I've got lists and lists, and I got lists in 3 or 4 different places. And thanks to Nikki's advice a long time ago, I found an app that can make myself small daily lists, so I don't have to deal with all the other lists I've got. But I think I've got like there's 3 main competing. No, 4. There's 4 competing big goals, and I don't. And the thing is there's only so much time in a day to deal with all of them. And oh no, wait a minute, I found oh gosh, now I found a 5th, and now I've got. But that's the thing, I've got like all these. One of them is.
They've got to play nice to get.
Well, I really, I mean, I need to sort of pick a direction, or at least just, I mean, I guess I can't do everything all at once. One of them, I mean, a big one is I want to develop this essentials to astrology, and which is part and parcel with also developing my own personal practice with there. I've also I would also like to make a living, which is not going to come from essentialist astrology yet. Some for my practice, and I also have a job. I've only got one freelance client right now, but he's got a big project for me that I'm picking away at with an article at a time. So I want to keep that, and that's a real. Clients coming in is a hit or miss. I'm actually getting somewhat regularly. I'm getting at least 1 or 2 a month now. But that's a regular thing I know is there. And so I don't want to lose that, even though it takes time away from other things. It doesn't pay a lot, but it's secure. The project he's got is going to be hundreds of articles. So, that gives me some job security for a while. But then the house is a mess, aside from just decluttering, just like self-care. I mean, the house is just, and that's a problem because I can put a lot of the task out of my mind, but when I go to the bathroom, I always see it's dirty, and then, my head goes into that. And then, and then I still put, I was learning Japanese for a while, and I was doing this, and there's other languages, and that's sort of gone to the wayside, but I don't want to let that go forever. Oh, and then there's self-care. So, and I've actually made that goal small, really small. And I think with the help of a book I had read about health at every size, which is, my goal is not to like lose weight, and it's not even right now. I mean, eventually I need to somehow make sure my blood sugars, but my blood sugar's getting better with just learning to feel when I'm hungry and when I'm not, and learning to trust my body. And so that's one goal, and that can be done all the time. Oh, do I have any? I don't know, but see all these. Blah, 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 blah. That's why like if I let my mind go off of the one thing at a time, it just goes there. So in order to get things done, I can get to the one thing at a time, and I can do that. But then if the minute I clamp down on that discipline, my mind goes all these different places. Well, and so sorry about that. So that's where I'm at. And sorry if that's trying to do that in a nutshell, but
no, I think you did a good job, and I think I can see some similarity in my own life, especially just after my husband died, and I had like 12 things I wanted to change, because now I had freedom to act for myself, and I wasn't looking after somebody who wasn't well. And I really remember that overwhelming feeling and not quite knowing which was most important and things. But similarly, as I said to Tamara, this is accidentally turned into kind of looking at some of the things we might want to bring to Virtual Pellin Italy, because now everybody here is going to Virtual Pellin Italy, plus Cease, who didn't turn up today. And that's who we are, Peter, Cease, and the people here now. So accidentally, that we have, if it was 10:30, we could look in a bit more detail now, and I would like you to have feedback, and maybe that's what we should do with the rest of the time. But it's 11:15, so we it is like, oh gosh, I really identify, and I'm leaning back, Nicky, with my arms open, like under the weight of the different goals. Nicky, any thoughts? And what do you think? I was just wondering if a bit of feedback rather than going deeply into those many things. What do you think?
Yeah, again, if Cynthia's up for that, I could start if you like while I'm unmuted.
Yes, please.
Okay, great. Because I actually thought of this after your first share about, so you're doing this writing project, and then it came in and I was struck by Mary calling it then you had the subsidiary project about looking after yourself, and that at that point, or shortly after that, I thought, oh, wait a second, what came in as a subsidiary one should actually now be shifted to be the front project, and the project which is your actual one that you'd like to be doing. This is what my thoughts at that point were. If you put that as secondary to looking after yourself, that would help it to be easier to do. And so now that you've said, aha, actually there are all these other projects as well, I'm just looking at it in a different way, but it kind of brings me to the same conclusion. Maybe if you put looking after yourself, self-care, as the front-running project, so that could be your central focus of attention. You'd have one central focus of attention, and then I'm suddenly seeing it as like the others would be satellites coming off that, and so then that would be your start point and your end point, and you could look at each satellite about that project and explore that for a bit about what are the next things I need to do for that. And then you'd go, oh, let me just check in with my central project of self-care. So it might help your head to be focused then, as well as it happening to therefore presumably eventually result in you caring for yourself better. Okay, so that was my idea of feedback.
Why don't we, what we do, sorry, I just remembered who hasn't yet been to Virtual Pellin Italy or Pellin Italy. What we do when we're giving feedback, Cynthia, is the person asks the next person you previously sitting in the room, they go around the circle in the room and asks if that person has any feedback for you. So here we do the same thing, but you ask the other people now in what order you want to ask if they have any feedback for you. So the worker has control of what's happening. It's you that asks for feedback.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll ask Elizabeth because I think you already gave me some, but just in case there's anything more you want to say or.
Well, what I observe is that even your big goals all have something in common, which is the development of harmony. I think at this point in your life, even the health at every size thing is harmony with your body, isn't it? And taking that as the big watchword, I wonder if that might help things fall into place a bit. Because if nothing else, you're going to have to stop and take a deep breath because that's how you bring yourself into harmony. I don't know if I'm being silly, but there I am.
It's not silly.
Thank you. I guess tomorrow is the next one on my screen, so I'll go there.
Okay, I want to be sure not to just relate whatever you're talking about back to myself, but I felt like I could recognize that, you know, that you reach for, you know, the big triangle, and you have like the 5 different goals. But you know, just by going there and kind of giving it a squish, it went off into all of these different pieces that could start to flap around, and you'd say, oh, there it goes. You know, that's why I keep them small and just do the little steps at a time. But it's really easy for the chaos of all of it to start flopping around. And so I guess it's just an observation, and I don't know if I'm on the same page as you, but I feel like this imperative, which is to really stay, you know, as they say, in the moment, and to really be like, be here now with whatever it is that's right there in front of me that I've chosen to be with. And I'm I don't know if this is helpful or not, but I'm trying to bring some love in to the to any work that I'm doing, that's goal oriented, to have a feeling of love that comes with it.
Thank you. I was just checking, make sure were you finished in there? Because
Yes. Yeah.
okay, I guess Mary's next then.
Yeah, I forgot to remind people that when you're receiving feedback, you trying to passive listen, you're trying to just receive it without judgment and without emotional reaction. That's the aim. I think you've been around Pellin enough to have probably guessed that. I'm thinking something that's to do with awareness strata. I'm thinking about how, because of feeling, because you know, you and I share a sense of I'm trying to put this in a way that's not contradictory to the way Pellin talks. You know, that with an awareness strata that believes that we're receiving things from higher power about what goals should be. So I guess I think the being in the moment with things is really important, and I think that some of the way that I've been able to find out, if you like, my big triangle, my higher purpose, has been by listening. So I think some kind of, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in just saying listening, but being some inner stillness, which sounds like it's quite challenging for you, with a lot of mental activity. I don't know if that's right. We haven't really talked about it, but I think that's very interesting what Elizabeth said about harmony. And I don't quite know how to put it into words, but it feels a bit related to what I'm saying. I was going to share one little insight that came to me when I was in a similar state to you that I was describing after John died. I felt so overwhelmed with the fact that I wanted to reorganize the whole property, not just the house I lived in, but all the sheds, everything else. And I was a kind of diagram emerged, which I shared with you, so you know what I'm talking about, that indicated that putting one's self in order was kind of more important in the awareness strata spirituality than, this is what I got for me anyway, than all the things I couldn't manage in the outer manifestation. I suppose that's why I related to what Elizabeth said, but like harmony, I think because we're manifesting in a material world, we can think, oh, well, harmony is going to begin with me being able to put the external circumstances in order, you know, the physical shell around me. And I do believe things like Chinese Feng Shui are very important. I'm not minimizing that. But in terms of not being able to do all those 5 goals at the same time with not quite having enough time to do them all, I'm trying to follow a spiritual awareness of to do with prioritizing. I won't say any more about that because I don't quite know what that would be for you. I did want to say, I think Nicky's idea of having a central goal and others flowed out of it resonated for me. In terms of my knowing more about your struggles about self-care, I thought that particular layout she suggested was a little tough to get enough inspiration from, because there's so many that's like the #1 rejected effort area, I think, isn't it? And so I think that the you know, maybe when if you re-listen to the recording and listen to what Nicky said and see what happens if you put a different one of your 5 areas in there, and see if and thinking about the word harmony, and see if something falls into place, because I thought that was very powerful what she said, but I knew that probably that particular one wouldn't be worked well as a flow. And Cynthia's smiling in agreement with me, Nicky, which you can't see on the phone.
Yeah, I was trying to passive listen, and I was trying to just take it in without internal reaction. But when Nicky said self-care, it's like, oh God, how boring is that? And I'm like, okay, just like, well, that tells me where there's some work to do, I guess. And I just let myself go. Sorry.
Well done for putting up with it, Cynthia.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you got that's quite a little rehearsal of what does happen in virtual Pellin in Italy. Like, people get very involved with each other, and so they give a lot of feedback. And that's I'm just going to end with a little thing I was thinking of writing up. But as it happens to be virtual Pellin people here, part of the work we do once we've worked in chairs, and we do something that we tend to still refer to it as a stand-up round, because that's what you do when you're physically in the room. But at the end of chair work, not necessarily when it's sharing work, there's sharing work that's just talking and getting feedback, and then there's chair work where you'll be given an extra exercise at the end, where I may have talked about it to you before, but with a lead sentence, and then you explore this new thing that's come up in the chair work by using the beginning sentences. You know, one way I could be a little prouder of what I do would be by whatever the thing is you've been working on. And when somebody's saying they're round to you, or when they're working, the kind of etiquette of the work is that we're all passive listening. So we take the lead from Peter and the worker. Like if we're supposed to be listening, we listen. And then when we're asked for feedback, then we give feedback that's supposed to be uninterrupted by the worker who's receiving it, passive listening. So there's a big kind of interweaving of passive listening goes on in relation to talking. There's, in 12-step circles, it would be described as we generally don't have crosstalk. We don't have our responses or our own interjections, like the focus is on the helper and the worker. Nicky, is there anything you'd like to add about how Virtual Pellin Italy is organised that people won't know from the forum?
I think it's just wait and see. Oh, well, there's a bit about note taking for you're allocated a support partner and you take notes. But I'll talk about that at the beginning of the program.
Right.
Otherwise, we could get bogged down in detail now. And it'll seem a lot more complicated than it is if I talk about it now.
Yeah. So, but you have a support partner, and one way or another, I like to get the Zoom recordings. One way or another, you have a record of your work, whether it's by other people taking notes or whether you've agreed to be recorded, and then you have the Zoom recording sent to you when the person who's got it, which was me, organises that. So there's a lot of opportunity for reflection after the event as well that adds value to the participation in the programme. Okay, let's do our ending, allowing us to add something about how today's been if we want to. Oh, sorry, I just started. Person. So I'm Mary, I'm in Rosarito Beach, Mexico. And I guess it just shows when you're dealing with a part of the tools that you haven't learned for 40 years, it can be challenging when it's a new part, it can be challenging to get to that actual tool. But I think I really enjoyed the discussion and the examples. I think it was very valuable. Cynthia, anything next?
Yes, thank you. And I really appreciate everybody's feedback and taking the time for that. I really appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Nicky, next on my screen.
Nicky in Wimbledon, and I have enjoyed this evening. It's giving me food for thought for myself. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks. Elizabeth?
Elizabeth from Eugene, Oregon, and I've had great fun today. So thank you, everybody.
And Tamara, last but not least.
And I'm Tamara, and and I feel wonderful. It's almost like a gift that I forgot was under the tree, which is that there's VPI 3 coming up on Monday, and I'm really happy about that.
Me too.
That's so good calling it VPI 3. It's so simple, it's so casual. I'm going to adopt that now.
Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. And we'll see you on Sunday, maybe, and Monday, certainly. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.